Welcome to the Therapist Burnout Podcast, episode 55. Hey, therapist. Today I'm talking to you about the first steps to closure practice. So, I get this question often on consult calls, and people will write into me and just tell me, what's the timeline? What should I even do? So, I wanted to do this episode to give you a little bit of guidance on that from the research I've done, from the work that I've done with my one-to-one clients who are therapists. I want to say one-on-one therapy clients, but they are one-on-one clients that are therapists. Sounds very psychologist of me to say it that way, but it's really not. We're good. But first, I just want to check in about LinkedIn. I've been on a lot of podcasts lately. So I was on the Selling the Couch podcast with Melvin Verghese. Did I talk about that last week on the podcast? I don't know, but it's worth talking about again. So if you didn't check that episode that I talked with him about burnout, I usually always talk about burnout because that's the name of my podcast. So check that out. I just was really struck his presence and our just ability to hold space for each other on the podcast. It felt very much like a conversation between old friends. So I hope that I will continue having a friendship with Melvin. It was just wonderful. Check that podcast out. I was on there, and I was just also this past week so it was last Monday on the Practice of Therapy podcast, where I also talked about burnout. But I this was the question I got. Okay, I'm going to bring up this post that I did. I posted today, this morning, and I I put this post on a scheduled post, I wrote it last night, and then I was like, "Oh, I didn't get anything out about the podcast episode I was on the past Monday." And I like to promote it if I'm on somebody else's podcast, it's they're giving you a gift of having you on their podcast, so you want to share it. I wrote this post based on that interview that I did with Gordon Brewer on the Practice of Therapy podcast. And my hook, I liked my hook, y'all. Stop pretending burnout is just about self-care. What if the real issue is the system we work in? So I'm huge on burnout is not a therapist failing, it's a systems problem. And I had pause. So Gordon, and this is an innocent question. It was a great conversation with Gordon. But he asked me, what can therapists do for self-care? And I just have a weird relationship with the word self-care because I think that therapists in their training, so I just can remember myself at 26 sitting in a training in grad school where burnout was likened to self-care. So if you want to avoid burnout, you need to make sure you do all your self-care. So make sure you're doing your exercise, your nutrition, all the things that help us to care for ourselves. And it is stress management. Those things are stress management. They're burnout prevention. I know. I feel like I say this all the time, but I have to say it louder for the people in the back. Listen up, y'all. Here's the thing, and this was my post. While self-care can help, it won't fix a system that underpays and overworks mental health professionals. What is the real problem, y'all? It's low reimbursement rates compared to others in the healthcare fields. The belief that therapists can't be well paid for their essential work, and systems that pile on expectations without support. And I hear that. I mean, people write me on LinkedIn, people send me emails all the time. The telehealth companies. I've gotten some I gotten some mail on LinkedIn from across the pond. I don't have an English accent. That's awful. That's a horrible English accent. I'm sorry I just murdered that, y'all. Just about what they're facing over there, in the NHS. Am I saying that right? Their national healthcare system. So they have a national healthcare system. And a lot of them will go to private practice as the escape hatch to get out of burnout from that. And they're like, can people really burn out of a private practice? Yes, they can. Yes, they 100% can. So anyway, then today someone posted on my LinkedIn. It's for the world to see. So I don't know why people come on my page in these LinkedIn streets like this. So someone posted something I won't say their name on my podcast. Okay. being a psychotherapist isn't just a job. If practitioners are in this field simply to as a good earner, it's time to leave. The magic of client work is the magic. What does that even mean? Good, clean human connection is what we do. And in that connection, we can also support our clients to meet themselves in all their glory. I love the work I do, and I always know the money is not my motivator, as it will lead to resentment and dissatisfaction. Thank you for your comment, was my first response to that. I said, I know therapists are drawn to this work to heal. It is what we want to see as therapists. However, the system does not adequately support our health financially, socially, and spiritually. It is possible to create these systems for ourselves. It should definitely be better without a doubt. It is unfortunate when people blame therapists for needing money to survive. We all need to be well supported in order to do this work. I'm glad money's not your motivator. It's not mine either, but we still need it to live. Mic drop. And so why I'm having that long sigh is because this is the message we get from other therapists. We are wrong. We are shameful for wanting more, for needing more. It's not about wanting. So like in my case, I was making like I think it was 45K, y'all, netting from my private practice. And that was seeing 20 clients a week. It wasn't enough. Like, it's just not enough in 2025 to make 45K with a doctoral degree, with loans, with all the things that I have to pay, with having 2 children. It's just not enough. So it's crazy making that other therapists will kind of talk about this openly and get on the shame train for other therapists to say like, well, why did you get into this? Because you knew it wasn't going to pay money. I will continue to advocate and say the positive opposite for therapists. Like we need more. We deserve more. And it doesn't work. So that's why we're leading the field. So I got you in these LinkedIn streets. Oh, okay. I'm gonna stop being ridiculous, Jen, today, but I like it. So the focus of today's episode is really giving you that timeline for if you're leaving, you know you're leaving, you just don't know like how do I even do this? When do I tell clients? What do I even do? That's often the first part of this conversation. So I have put together a little guide for you. I'm hopeful to get it out by the time of this recording when it airs on Monday. Uh, we shall see. That is my goal. So it might be in your podcast player or it may not, but let's go with it's going to be in there. We're going to go with that. So the first step is really to plan your timeline. All right. So how long do you really want to take to close your practice? This can also apply like if you've been in a long-term agency job or you've been in a long-term group practice, this could apply to your timeline. So, what I know from the work that I've done with therapists and scouring ethical code is that there's no hard and fast numbers on how long we should take to close our practice. Okay. We do have ethical imperatives, however. We need to offer predetermination counseling within a reasonable time limit. There's no specific time limits to current clients, inform former clients of closure, and provide necessary referrals. So we know that there's no specific timelines. My recommendation, if you don't have a timeline through insurance and things of that nature, is to give yourself at least 90 days. If you don't have that amount of time, I've helped people close their practice in 2 weeks because they needed to go. So I'm not saying it's out of the realm of possibility for yourself. So you can do this in a way that really supports you. I'd recommend 90 days. So step one, review. Oh, let me back up before I get into the steps. So also you have access to your liability insurance. So I was able to consult, like technically I'm still in the process of closure. I closed almost 2 years ago. But anyway, I called them just because I was like, so I'm closing my practice again. And just asked them that question, like, what's the general timeline? And they don't know. They're like, there's no guidance in ethical code or in the law for how long we have to do. So I said, I was going to do 90 days. How does that sound? And they said, yeah, I think that sounds pretty good. So there's really no guidance on that. I did look up the social worker, gosh, I'm a psychologist, y'all. So, elf so the social work board, no, social work organization. You guys know if you're a social worker, what your organization is, okay? I'm just gonna go forward. They on their website, it says they give a recommendation of 60 days. So, gives a little guidance there. I'm going forward with my steps now. So, step 1, review any contracts and insurance payer agreements. So, if you're in a contract with a group practice, for example, or contractually employed, then consider any of those contracts you're in. Consider your payers with paneled insurances. These contracts usually have 30 to 90 days requirements. However, I talked to one person who was in a Medicaid agreement for 6 months. Call them up, write to them. Sometimes it's hard to find these things. So it might take you a little bit of time if you are on insurance panels to figure that out. And I think that's different if you are in a group practice, like you're not held to those requirements, you're just held to whatever your contract states. Like you need to put in your notice or whatever. So if it's 30 days or 60 days per your contractual agreement with the group practice or whatever place you're working for. Step 2 would be to set your date you're no longer accepting new clients. So you would notify the new clients that you will be closing and provide your effective date for that. So you can put that on your website. So you can just put that up on your website or put a notice out that your practice is closing or you are retiring or taking a new job. So all this applies for people who are retiring as well. So if you still want to take on new clients, like maybe this could be for someone who is retiring, right? They are giving their clients a longer runway. They're telling clients maybe 6 months. So you can let new clients know I am retiring, I'm closing my practice and give them the effective date of when you're closing. There we go. Step 3 would be to contact your liability insurance carrier and your state board. I might move that to step 2. Yeah, I think I'm gonna move that to step 2. See this, I'm reviewing stuff in process with you guys here. This is great. So you want to really look at your state board. Sometimes they might give you some guidance about how long they would recommend. I haven't heard of that. I haven't heard of a state board giving guidance on that, but they might, depending on your state, if you're in the US. And if you're not in the US, I don't know what happens, but you might want to contact whatever licensing board or people that you are under. I'm interested to hear if any other liability insurance carrier has any templates or things like that. I have some templates that I give my coaching clients on letters to clients and things of that nature. So interesting to know. All right. So I'd really have you, that might be a process. So all those steps might take a few weeks, might take a month, right? Because you need to call insurance companies, you need to call your board, you need to call your liability insurance carrier. So it might take you some time to do that. And I recommend no less than a 90-day closure for a full practice. If you have very few clients, you might be able to do this if, your clients have been with you for a long time and you feel like otherwise they're doing pretty good. I still like the 90 days because it really allows you to pace yourself emotionally because what is coming next is multiple terminations, which will be my next episode. So that is a whole ball of wax in itself. Like this part is easy, y'all. The terminations and emotionally how you have to get through that is a whole nother ball of wax. So take your time, figure this piece out, kind of logistical kind of pieces, because you need to know that date anyway before you tell clients. So this is step 1, that it has multiple steps. And then you lock in your closure date. All right. So lock that in once you've reviewed those first pieces of information, determine your tentative date for closure. And then on my form, you have a little blank there you can fill in. And I also provided a little worksheet. So to review your payer and your contracts. For example, like if Anthem, an insurance carrier in the US, says you need to inform clients 90 days prior to closure, you can enter that date in right in that little worksheet and do that for all the people you need to inform. So that's what I had for you guys today. So we're just talking about the first steps involved to leave a long term group practice, to close your private practice, or if you're retiring, these are the steps you need to think about to shut it down. Next week, we're going to talk about informing your clients. And that's going to take longer. Like, this is easy and easy from the step perspective because it really requires, I think, just to get your ducks in a row and figure that out. There's a whole nother emotional process to this. So let's just dive in a little bit to this, right? If you've gotten to the point where you're here, I know you haven't come to this point lightly. You, if you're at this point, when I'm at this point with other therapists, they know it. They know it. It's not a waffling situation. They're like, I cannot do this anymore. So they work with me to help them shut it down. And so I help them with, just the date piece. That is the easy part, but also thinking through, who am I now? Am I going to hurt my clients? How do I do this in a way that's ethical, that's caring? And I think what's important that I just want to get across to you, therapist, is I know that you want to do the right thing. I just know you do. You want to end well. And that's the part I help therapists with, helping them end well so they can feel like they can close this chapter. I think just to encourage you a little bit that, yes, it's a process, but you can do it well. You can end well. And sometimes you need support with that. So whether that's your personal therapy, whether that's working with me, I don't know, thinking through that. So I'm also going to start working on a course to kind of put all of my thoughts together about this and into kind of like ethical practice closure training for you guys. I think it would be good just to have it organized and laid out so people can pop into like, yeah, I just need the logistical piece now, or I actually need to think about like what this means for me. And I have some ways that I think through that for clients. I need to heal from my burnout as part of it. That's often part of the discussion that I have with other therapists. With that, I will talk with you guys next week. Have a good one.